Thank you, Dallas. Welcome, everyone, to today's Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The day is May 13th, 2021. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone. Or
Testing.
if anyone else is recording the meeting, let us know. Pursuant to Governor
I did hear
Baker's-
him speak earlier.
Did you hear it coming from my mic?
I
was logged on.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I think I'm being interrupted here. There's someone talking. Sarah, can you mute that person?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you
I
very
believe
much.
That's the Coopers. So if you're not presenting your application or speaking, please remember to mute your microphone. That way there's no background noise.
Okay, back to my duty here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order and subsequently any others and other governmental dictates, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board is being conducted by a remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, and then you put in the conference ID number, which is 465-636-482, then hit the pound. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So we'll now have a roll call of all the members. Please give your name and the middle initial if you have one. So this authorizes us to meet in this remote focus. So I will start with Dave Veach.
David H. Veach, present.
Paul.
Paul C. Semple, present.
Buck.
James M. Upson, present.
Dave Thompson.
David R. Thompson, present.
Dennis.
Dennis Sullivan, present.
Megan.
Megan V. Story, present.
Bill.
William Grau, present.
And I am David S. Nixon, and I am present. Okay. A quick review of how we run our meeting. To begin with, I should mention that any citizens or non-board members who are participating in the call via the phone only for their name, and then please give us your name and the last four digits of your phone number for identification purposes. The meeting is held as follows. The notice will be read. It will be read by the PTO for the town of Chatham. That is Sarah Clark. She's the principal permitting officer. After it's read, then you or your representative will present the appeal or application. Following that, anyone in favor of the appeal or application may speak, and you do so by indicating on the screen so that Sarah can recognize you and invite you to join the meeting. Following that, I will read any and all letters that the board received. Then anyone who wishes to speak against the appeal or the application may do so. If that happens, sometimes we have rebuttal testimony. Following that, the board members would have questions to anyone who has presented anything about the appeal. Following that, we would then close the hearing and go into deliberation. Deliberations are open only to board members unless a board member asks for someone who has participated to join in the discussion. We would then have a vote. Voting in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is done on a super majority basis. That means in our case, where there are 5 voters, to be successful, you have to have 4 votes in the affirmative. I would say that today the voters are Dave Veach, Paul, Buck, Dave Thompson, and myself. Okay, I think we're all set to roll. So we've got a change in the agenda. Mr. Riley had requested that he go first, and the others have agreed to have that happen. So I believe we will start, Sarah, with 21-031.
Application number 21-031, Thomas and Holly Benneville, care of William F. Riley, Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 150 Meadowview Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map, 9I Block 22, Lot SW 36. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the construction of additions. The existing dwelling and proposed additions are non-conforming and that they are located within the Coastal Conservancy District floodplain elevation 11, where a 50-foot setback is required. The proposed additions will comply with the road and abutter setback requirements. The existing building coverage is 1,516 square feet, 15.8%, and the proposed building coverage is 2,286 square feet, 23.9%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 9,850 feet of buildable upland, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Chatham Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Riley?
Good afternoon, Mr. Nixon, and thank you to the zoning board and the other applicants for allowing me to go first. I greatly appreciate it. Tom and Holly Benneville are lucky enough to be retired and are planning on using their home at 150 Meadowview Road as a permanent retirement home. And to that end, they wanted to add a master bedroom. They wanted to make their one-car garage a two-car garage, and they wanted to put a little space over the garage. They also added some dormers on the front elevation of the house. And so if you've been to the site, you can see that the property slopes off pretty dramatically to the rear of the down towards the pond, and and our application notes that our building coverage is 23.5%, which is a lot. However, we do want to point out, and I submitted a little note, a note from Dave Clark, that prior to the 2014 map revision by FEMA, our buildable upland was over 25,000 square feet, which would have resulted in a building coverage of 9%. So I hope members will keep that in mind while considering the adequacy of the site. It's a very modest change to the property by looks. And what it does is it makes it a property that they can live in year-round comfortably and have family members come visit also comfortably. Dave Clark is on the line as well. If you have questions about grading or building height calculation. If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll run through the criteria.
Please do.
Okay, so adequacy of the size of the site, the size of the proposed use. We believe the size of the site is adequate because the proposed additions meet all setback and are no closer to the Conservancy District than the existing building. We do intrude a little bit on the 11-foot contour, which is the Conservancy District. It cuts the corner of the garage here, right there, the garage addition. That's our only incursion into that area. The building coverage is going from 15.8% to 23.5% of the buildable upland. But it's important to note that the actual lot area is 27,600 feet. And it wasn't a change in our zoning bylaw, in other words, town action. It was FEMA changing the floodplain in 2014 that changed the amount of buildable upland. So we believe that this is a reasonable request in terms of building coverage. And the site, the site's adequate for the proposed change. Compatibility of the size of the proposed structure with neighboring properties. I've attached a sheet which we forwarded to you this afternoon It shows the net areas for the houses on Meadowview from 33 to 175. Our property's 150, which on that sheet shows 1,958 square feet of net area. And we're basically increasing that by about 1,000 square feet. I think that as you drive into Meadowview from Barn Hill Road, the homes on the left-hand side of the street, which are up on a hill, considerably higher than the road surface itself, there's some pretty impressive, imposing structures, full 2 stories with additions and things. So this property is not going to have that kind of massive look, but it is going to be larger than most of the buildings on the street in terms of living area. The extent of the proposed increase in non-conforming nature, the living area increased from the current, well, I thought it was 1,800, but 1,900 square feet to 2,800 square feet. Constant increase in the non-conforming nature, an intensification, as in the words of the case law, of the non-conforming use, that is a residential structure on a undersized lot. I also put in all aspects of the addition meet the Conservancy District setback, because I was looking at the 50-foot line and the 100-foot line from the from the pond, from the top of bank, and without noticing the fact that the 11-foot contour runs through the corner of that garage. So that would also be an increase in non-conforming nature. Suitability of the site, including but not limited to impact on neighboring properties, or the natural environment, including slopes, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater, water bodies, and stormwater runoff. As you will see from the correspondence when you get to it, this project has already been through the Conservation Commission process and has been approved, and they've issued an order of conditions. So we believe that as long as the property owner and the contractor comply with the order of conditions, that the site is suitable and does not represent a danger to the adjoining wetlands. Impact of scale, siting, and mass on neighborhood visual character, including views, vistas, and streetscapes. So as you know from driving down the street, there's a lot of vegetation on the Benneville lot. And the house is set back, so that the ridge height is not changing. There will be a second floor over the garage, and there will be a second floor over the master bedroom addition, and they've put dormers in there to provide some light and make them a little more useful. But you don't have the full 2-story visual impact you have from some of the homes on the way in from Barn Hill Road. So we believe that because of the way the design is cited on the property and how they managed to keep the same scale, that these changes will actually have a positive effect on the neighborhood visual character and streetscape. As you know from being there, there's no views and vistas to be concerned about. So I think that you could find that this project, as designed, does not constitute something substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing project. Compatibility of the proposed use with neighboring uses as a single-family home in a single-family neighborhood, so it's compatible. Method of sewage disposal. If you noticed when you went to the property, there's an elevated or raised septic system in the front corner, right there, in the front corner of the lot, because the town has run sewer down there. The property will now be on the sewer, and the that septic system, which is not particularly attractive, if you've noticed it, a lot of trees around it, will be removed. And so we think that will actually enhance the look of the property and the way it fits into the neighborhood. The impact of traffic flow and safety, it's just Tom and Holly there most of the time. We don't think there'll be any impact on traffic flow and safety. And noise and litter, Tom told me they're very quiet, so we don't think there's going to be any problem. So that would be our presentation. I did want to point out the note from Dave Clark, in which he points out that in 2014 the floodplain was elevation 8, which is elevation today on the current plans. So prior to the 2014 map change, the buildable upland was in excess of 25,200 square feet. So we believe that the proposal is reasonable under the circumstances and is not substantially more detrimental. And that would be our presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Riley. I would now ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this application. If there is anyone, please indicate on the screen that you wish to speak so that Sarah can recognize you.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application.
Okay, then I'll read the correspondence. The first is a memo. This is from Judith Giorgio, the health agent for the town. Board of Health, she writes on 5/12, I have reviewed the plan to add an addition. The property is connected to the town sewer system. The proposal does not add sewer flow to the property. I have no concerns. And then we have a note from our new conservation agent, that is Nicole Smith. She writes on Wednesday, April 21st. The applicant has received approval for this project from the Conservation Commission and an order of conditions has been issued. The submitted site plan matches what was approved by Conservation. That is the extent of the correspondence. I would now ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against this or has a specific question. If so, please indicate on the screen so that Sarah can recognize you.
I see no one that has a specific question or wishes to speak in opposition.
Okay, we'll now have questions by the board members. Dave Veach,
Dave Veach has no questions.
Paul,
Paul Semple has no questions.
Buck,
Buck has no questions.
Dave Thompson,
Dave Thompson has no questions, sir.
Dennis,
Dennis Sullivan, I have no questions.
Megan,
Megan Story has no questions.
Bill,
Bill has no questions.
and I have no questions. Okay, I'd entertain a motion, please, Paul.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need a vote on that. Dave Veach,
Veach votes yes.
Paul,
Semple votes yes.
Buck,
Buck votes yes.
Dave Thompson,
Dave Thompson votes yes.
and I vote yes. So let's start with deliberations with Paul.
This is Paul Semple. It seems to me this fits the criteria for a special permit. It's certainly not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, and I think will improve the appearance of the neighborhood. I'm not concerned about the 23 or 25% figures, given the fact that the lot was affected by the change in the flood zone. So I will vote in favor.
Buck,
Well, I support it. Looking at the two-car garage, it certainly was, I think, the largest part of the increase in coverage. And there were other homes in the neighborhood that had two-car garages. And I don't think there's a problem with it at all. It's compatible with some of the other homes in the house, even if they are a little larger. So I'll support it.
Dave Thompson.
Thank you. I echo everybody else's comments, and I definitely will support this.
Dennis.
Dennis Sullivan, I'm not voting on this, but if I were, I would certainly vote in favor of it. It meets all our standards.
Megan.
I agree. I think they did a nice job on the design to make it match and mix in with the neighborhood.
Bill.
I also agree. From going to the site, I think there's a really nice buffer around the perimeter of the property. It's a significant enough drop off to the pond, and I would support it if voting.
Dave H.
I concur with all the previous, Dave.
Okay. Paul, do you think we need to condition this?
I guess my question would be, what's the intent in terms of when they're going to do their construction?
This is Bill Riley. I think Tom Benneville's on the line as well. So I'd ask Tom, did you plan on beginning construction this summer, or are we going to wait until the fall?
No, hi, everybody. The plan now is to begin in the fall, probably October or November.
All right,
Good. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
So I think the standard condition of keeping all construction vehicles on the site should be sufficient.
Okay. Paul, do we need anything about June 30th to Labor Day or no?
Well, I guess the question would be whether the intent is, or whether they anticipate going beyond from October through June 30th.
Well, even if it did go past June 30th, at that point, there's not going to be any exterior construction. It'll be, at that point, it'll be work on the interior. So if you want to say no exterior construction after June 30th, I think we're okay with that.
All right, I guess this is Paul Semple. I would suggest that we add the conditions that all construction activity and vehicles be contained up, and that between June 30th and Labor Day, presumably 2022, but also this year, no exterior construction will be allowed.
Okay. Okay. So an official motion, please, Paul.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to approve the application with the conditions which I've just suggested.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need to vote on that. Dave Veach.
Veach votes yes.
Paul.
Semple votes yes.
Buck.
Buck votes yes.
Dave Thompson.
Thompson votes yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Riley. That's a unanimous decision.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Sarah, we go on to 21-032.
Application number 21-032, Stage Harbor Yacht Club and Sailing School, care of William F. Riley, Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 7 Champlain Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 13A, Block 4, Lot 23A. The applicant seeks to install a fence within the Conservancy District. The proposed fencing is allowed by special permit under Section 4A3A of the Protective Bylaw. The lot contains 9,200 square feet in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the Chatham Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Riley.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's about time the zoning board notified the planning board that provisions like this in the mode path should be removed from the zoning bylaw in any event. So we have a sailing school with a lot of children ages 8 to 17 or 18. And our immediate abutter on the east is the Town of Chatham trap dock, called the trap dock, but it's for use by commercial fishermen. And so the idea of the fence is to keep our children away from their trucks. I can talk longer if you want.
No, I think that's quite sufficient. Thank you, Mr. Riley. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate it on the screen now so that Sarah can recognize you.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application.
Okay, then the correspondence, the first one we had was from Nicole Smith, who wrote in April, the proposed fence is not included on the most recently approved site plan. Well, she then wrote after that, ignore previous comment. I didn't realize they were on the next agenda. Okay. Pending approval of the RDA, conservation is okay with the project proceeding. And then we have a note. This is from Sharon Brown. And he writes on April 28th, Michelle Hannon, our new collections assistant, has reviewed the account history and informed me that Stage Harbor Yacht Club has not paid their water bill in months. If they are paying today, the amount due is as shown. Otherwise, they may want to add a little extra to cover the interest. So, Mr. Riley, what's the story on that?
Well, I forwarded that email to my client, and there was a lot of head scratching going on, and then they just wrote a check for the $43 or whatever it is, and they don't know why the bill wasn't paid, but anyway, it's paid now.
Thank you very much. Okay. That's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate on the screen now so that Sarah can recognize you.
I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition or has a specific question.
Okay, then I'll just throw out a generic question. Does any board member have a question? If so, please speak up. Hearing no one, I would ask Paul for a motion.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
We need to vote on that. Dave Veach,
Veach votes yes.
Paul,
Semple votes yes.
Buck,
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson,
Thompson votes yes.
and I vote yes. Deliberations, let's start with Dave Thompson.
That's good. It's a good idea. Keep the kids away from the trap dock. I'm 100% in favor.
Dennis,
If I were voting, I'd certainly vote in favor of it.
Megan,
I have no real issue with it.
Bill,
No issue whatsoever.
Dave Veach,
Meets all of the applicable criteria and will be an actual improvement in the situation.
Paul,
I agree. It meets all our criteria and will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood and meets a safety concern.
Buck.
I agree with all the previous comments.
Okay, I can't believe that we need any conditions on this. So, Paul, I would ask for a motion, please.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
Dave Veach seconds.
All right, vote. Dave Veach,
Veach votes yes.
Paul,
Semple votes yes.
Buck,
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson,
Thompson votes yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Riley. That's a unanimous vote.
Thanks
Okay.
again for the courtesy of allowing me to go first. Thank you very much.
All right. So, Sarah, let's circle back to 21-027.
Application number 21-027, Craig and Catherine Peters, owners of property located at 1711 Old Queen Anne Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 3I, Block 22, Lot 1. The applicant seeks to construct a ramp and catwalk as allowed by special permit under Section 4A3A of the Protective Bylaw. The lot contains 99,300 square feet in the R60 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Section 8D2B of the Chatham Protected Bylaw.
Okay, do we have either Mr. or Mrs. Peters to present this?
Yes, we are here. Thank you for hearing this.
Okay, just identify
Wish we
yourself,
could
that's all.
be there in person.
Yep,
Hi, I'm Craig Peters,
great.
and this is my wife Kathy.
Very good. The floor is yours, sir.
Thanks. So this is a request for placement of a portable catwalk to provide for access to the pond, generally known as Mill Pond, behind our house on Old Queen Anne Road. The plot plan is shown here, including the size, which is fairly limited. We have had this reviewed by our environmental consultant with the conditions of making it non-opaque. It will be aluminum, so there's no wood leaching, and the interpretation was no impact on local vegetation. We would have it in position only from May to October, and then remove it and store it up on the property during the winter months. We went through the appeals criteria, most of which are either included in the plans that you're looking at, or were not directly relevant in terms of things such as scale and local compatibility, sewage, and traffic as such.
Okay, yeah, I don't think you need to elaborate on any of the criteria. Okay, anything else to add, or you're done?
No, I think unless there were specific questions.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. Very good. All right, then I would ask in the audience if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application to please indicate on the screen so that Sarah can recognize you to do so now.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application.
Okay, then the correspondence is from Nicole Smith. As I mentioned, she's our new conservation agent. She writes on April 28th, 1711 Old Queen Anne. They will be before us again on May 12th. They will likely be approved, but at the last hearing, we were waiting for the state to issue the permit number and for comment regarding endangered species. All the other filings have been received by the Conservation Commission approval, except for Riverview, which, well, that's getting off the path. So tell me what happened at the meeting on May 12th? Mr. Peters?
David Clark, who I think is.
Okay.
David Clark attended that meeting and may be able to give us that information.
Please.
David Clark here, Clark Engineering. So we continued the meeting on May 12th to May 26th because we were not in receipt of the comment letter from the Endangered Species Program in Massachusetts. Secondly, Conservation asked for a mitigation plan, which is still being prepared. So they want 2-to-1 mitigation for the footprint of the catwalk. Blue Flax Design is finishing that plan up, and we will present that to the commission on the 26th. They also had questions regarding the through flow grading on the catwalk. In the past, we've been commended by the commission on using that material because it allows 40% of the sunlight to penetrate the bottom to try to keep the vegetation lush underneath. They now have questions about using plastic in the environment, and we're in contact with the vendor to try to get the information to the commission regarding the use of that specific material. We expect a resolution one way or the other, and it was strictly regarding the decking material. So, like I said, we expect a resolution shortly on that.
Okay, Dave, would sort of a negative resolution on the material alter the design of the catwalk at all?
Not the size or the location. It would do. It's basically the walking surface.
Okay.
So we.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. So, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate it on the screen now so that Sarah can recognize you.
I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition or has a specific question.
Okay, very good. Then we'll have questions from the board. I will start with Dennis. Dennis, do you have any questions?
Yeah, the only question I have is, what's the endangered species that we're concerned about?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to respond to that. David Clark here. So the state of Massachusetts has mapped areas throughout the state where it is what they call estimated habitat for endangered species. So the shoreline of most of our, I think pretty much all our great ponds here in Chatham are mapped habitat for either animals or vegetation. So when a project falls within that area, a notice has to be given to the state and along with project plans, and they review the plans to see if the project will result in what they call a take, T-A-K-E, of an endangered species. Based upon the scope of this project, the Endangered Species Program said it will not result in a take of an endangered species. They didn't specifically say what endangered species. If this was a more substantial project, they would have asked for either a biologist to walk the site to see if there was any endangered species present. My experience is that on these coastal ponds, the endangered species is usually a plant species that lives on sandy shores. This is not a sandy shore in this particular location, and I'm just speculating that that's why they said there was not going to result in a take.
Any other
Thank you.
questions? Dennis?
No, thank you, no.
Megan?
No questions.
Bill?
No questions.
Dave Veach?
Dave Veach has no questions.
Paul?
I have no questions.
Buck?
Buck has no questions.
Dave Thompson?
No questions, sir.
Okay, and I don't have any. All right, Paul, I would entertain a motion.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
And we got a vote on that. Dave Veach?
Veach votes yes.
Paul?
Semple votes yes.
Buck?
I'm here, Dave. I'm sorry. Yes.
Dave Thompson?
Yes, sir.
And I agree. Okay. Let's start with Megan.
I don't see any issue with it. I think that it's seasonal and I don't have any issue.
Bill?
I don't have any issue either. I think from looking at it at the site, I think it's a good addition and I can see why they would want to do it, and I would vote in favor if I were voting.
Dave Veach?
Yeah, Dave, it meets all of our criteria and I can happily support it.
Paul?
Yes, I think under section 4A, 6E, that it is a structure that would not be detrimental to safety on the waterways or preservation of water quality and ease of access under these circumstances. So I think it meets our criteria.
Buck?
I have no problem with it. It's pretty modest. I think it's 16 feet long plus a ramp. Very low impact. I would support it.
Dave Thompson?
Dave Thompson will support it also.
Okay, Dennis.
Yes, if I were voting, it meets all the standards that Paul had indicated. I would vote in
Okay.
favor of it.
Paul, do we need to consider any sort of a condition?
I frankly don't see a need for conditions, given, I mean, that's a large lot. I was surprised in going out there how easily you get off of Old Queen Anne Road and down into the property. So I would assume that all the construction activity can be contained on site. So if we just use that standard condition, that's all we need.
Okay. Okay, then a motion, please.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the condition that all construction activity and vehicles be contained on site.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we need to vote. Dave Veach,
Veach votes yes.
Paul,
Semple votes yes.
Buck,
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson,
Thompson votes yes.
and I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Peters, and Dave Clark also. Okay, Sarah, 21-028, please.
Application number 21-08, Timothy and Tracy Jewell, care of Theodore Stryber, 15 Linden Tree Lane, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owners of property located at 2 Oyster Drive, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15A, Block 9, Lot H15A. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a non-conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling. Also proposed is the construction of a new driveway. The dwelling is and will remain non-conforming as it is located entirely within the Coastal Conservancy District, floodplain elevation 13, where a 50-foot setback is required. The existing dwelling is non-conforming and that it is located 12.8 feet from Oyster Drive, 12.5 feet from Seagull Road, 9.3 feet from the northerly abutter, and 4.6 feet from the southeasterly abutter. The proposed dwelling will be non-conforming in that it will be located 2.6 feet from Oyster Drive, 7.8 feet from Seagull Road, where a 40-foot setback is required, 7.9 feet from the northerly abutter, and 5.9 feet from the southeasterly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 765 square feet, and the proposed building coverage is 775 square feet, where 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming, and that it contains 0 square feet of buildable upland, where 20,000 square feet is required, and contains 3,052 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Sections 6 and 9, and Sections 5B and 8D2B of the Protective Bylaw.
Mr. Stryber, are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, the floor is yours.
I'm Sam Stryber. I'm the architect on this project. The pictures that you see there are the existing house. It's a small cottage in the Little Beach area, just off Oyster. It's on the corner of Oyster Drive and Little Beach Road. This is the owners wish to demolish the house and raise up its footprint to 14 feet, a foot and change above the FEMA standard of 13 feet. And the additional freeboard and the additional inches are mainly to be able to allow a garage door to function into the storage area, which is allowed by FEMA. The house itself is basically the same footprint. That was the intention. That's the roofed area that we're raising up. Because of raising the first floor above the ground, one has to allow or provide some outdoor space to congregate immediately outside your living area, which we are adding a deck, which is smaller than the existing patio area. Around the two sides, a deck, a small deck would allow two means of egress, which is required by code. So these would, the stair coming up in the front that Sarah is showing turns because it has to avoid the garage door opening. But in this case, it is well behind the lot line, 2.6 feet behind the lot line. So those are the extensions. There is a little bump over on the right hand, the northeast side. That's a little gas stove that is equivalent to a fireplace chimney. So this is very simple and straightforward. We have a few things that we're hoping to accomplish inside with the 3 bedrooms, living room, dining room, and kitchen. There's really very little extensions. Some of the setback reductions have to do with these decks and stairs, but the basic house is the same distance from the lot line as the existing house. If I can read the criteria.
Please do, please do.
Jules have owned the house less than 1 year, but have enjoyed living in this quaint neighborhood of small cottages so close to Pleasant Bay beaches and the outermost marina. Their house is similar in size to many others in the area because it was one of the cottages built by the Horns for the seasonal rental. It's a 1-story small house on a lot just able to support a house consisting of a combined living room, dining room, and kitchen with 2 bedrooms and a bath, all 765 square feet. It actually has the estimate. The lot is the 3rd largest on the on Oyster Drive at 3,052 square feet, with buildable upland 0, since almost all of the 6 feet of elevation is well below the 13 feet required by the base flood elevation. The lot, however, has a small patio. The existing lot has a small patio facing the views and perimeter walkways for simplified vacation living with an outdoor shower, small wooden storage container, 2 tandem parking spaces, and some flower beds along the house facing Oyster Drive. Compatibility of the size with the neighboring properties. 6 properties are on Oyster Drive are all very similar as cottage grouped around a single roadway. 2 Oyster Drive is consistent in size with the other lots, around 3,000 square feet. The smallest is 2,428, and the largest is 3,373 square feet. None on the street and on the other cottage streets in the neighborhood meet the R40, 40,000 square feet minimum requirement of the district. Extent of the increase in non-conforming nature. The design intent of the project is to raise the new structure for exactly the same footprint to meet the FEMA elevation and add 1'8" of freeboard so the standard garage door can be installed. Then the Jules house has existing coverage of 765 square feet for 25.1% of the lot and does not conform to 50 that is required by zoning. The percent is basically 0 because the calculation uses upland area and the whole lot is in the floodplain. The height of the existing house is 15.4 feet and the proposed is 28.6, well under the 30 feet required within the district. Road setback is met, if measured from the closest step, is 2.6 feet from the line at Oyster Drive. However, the road setback at Siegel Road was 20 feet to the closest corner of the house. It is now 7.8 feet to a deck that is 8 feet in the air. Abutter setbacks on the south and west remain as existing, as does the main body of the proposed house. Suitability of the site, including impact on the property. This jewel property is able to support the activities and uses enjoyed by the owner. The site grade and landscaping will remain largely as it is now. The demolition and construction of a new house will not impact the neighborhood in matters of grade change, vegetation, wetlands, groundwater bodies, and stormwater runoff. The digging of a new foundation will might require some dewatering depending on the tide. This dewatering can be done at low tide in an excavated area within the lot so that all pumped water returns to the water table. The impact on visual character and views of Vistas. The proposed house, as raised, consists of a first floor with a combined living, dining, kitchen, utility room, and half bath. Second floor consists of 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. Adding the second floor dormer space within the 1-story roof. The lower level is treated as a storage area with only a few windows to keep it in scale. All parts of the elevation are designed to follow pleasing proportions, and the raised level will improve the view of Chatham's eastern shore from the deck. Compatibility with the neighboring uses. The proposed structure is purely residential in nature and fully compatible with the residential district. Adequacy of sewage disposal, source of water and drainage. The existing house is on a condominium septic system, which is sized for no increase in flow of the existing 2-bedroom sewer. And no increase in flow is necessary. The house has groundwater supply. Impact for traffic flow and safety. The proposed project has no effect on traffic flow and safety. Since the house is located on side streets, construction vehicles do not block traffic. Construction is confined to a small area on the site and should be complete over a short amount of time after the summer. Adequacy of utilities and services. The house is adequately served by water, gas, and electric. Visual impact on the neighborhood does not differ much from the house. Same trim set, same white cedar sheets, same windows and gutters. The height of the house is designed to match the reconstructed house across and style of trail. Extent of lateral treatment proposed. The house itself is not extended. The modest deck is added off the deck level. The house is usually outside the recreational space on that level. Only the front stairs have a minor adjustment to the roadside house. The small is there in no way to flood or water absorption in the ground. The new rate will be such that a finding that is substantially not more detrimental to the neighborhood can be reached in special permit, hopefully granted. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor? If so, please indicate on the screen so that Sarah can recognize you now.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor of this application.
Okay, I will read the correspondence. First is a memo from Judith Giorgio, Health Agent, Board of Health. She writes on 5/12, I reviewed the plan to demo and rebuild. The property is connected to a shared Title V system. The dwelling proposed does not increase the existing sewage flow above the existing 2 bedrooms and therefore is acceptable. I have no concerns. Then we have a note. This is from Catherine Halpern, the Planning Board Chairman. She writes on April 21st. The Planning Board at their April 12th meeting reviewed the ZBA's request for comment. After review of this request, the Board voted 7-0-0 to send a positive recommendation with the condition that the driveway shall be constructed of permeable material and shall be constructed in a manner which permits the unobstructed flow of water. And then we have a memo. This is from Nicole Smith, Conservation Agent. On April 21st, she writes, Oyster Drive has been through conservation and gained approval, and an order of conditions will be issued. The Conservation Department has no issue with the project as proposed. And then I have a letter that was delivered to me. This is written by Peter McConnell. Peter's address is 191 Morris Island Road. He writes today, I write to express my concern over the size and the height of the new dwelling. I was dismayed a year ago when I returned to Chatham to find that the cottage at 3 Scallop Terrace had been replaced with a new dwelling that was double the cottage's size and height. The lot on which the new dwelling is proposed to be built is 3,052 square feet, 1/13 the area that is required today to construct a dwelling. The current proposal doubles the living space and triples the overall square footage of the structure on the severely undersized lot. The height of the proposed dwelling is not in keeping with the overall neighborhood. I ask that the board consider whether a single-story dwelling or a smaller dwelling might be more appropriate for the neighborhood. And that's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either against this application or has a specific question? If so, please indicate now so that Sarah can recognize you.
I see Dan and Gail Blanchard have their hand raised and would like to speak.
Very good. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Blanchard, the floor is yours.
Microphone, microphone.
My name is Gail Blanchard. I reside at 181 Morris Island Road, and I would like to object to this application. I've lived in this neighborhood for many years, and I believe that a house of this dimension will appear massive in our neighborhood. There are many cottages here, and I agree with Peter McConnell that coming back to the area and finding this very large home has really disrupted the neighborhood. I'm also questioning going from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. I'm also a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom.
No, 3, it's 3 right now.
It's 3 right now. Okay.
Yeah, they think that too.
The application did say 2.
It did. It was an inadvertent mistake. It's existing 3 and there's no increased flow.
All right. I have some other concerns being in a small neighborhood with very small streets. I'm concerned about safety. I'm concerned that as these houses become double in size, having emergency vehicles being able to get to attend a fire or an emergency. This is a very tight neighborhood. It's difficult to manage. Most of it is a walking neighborhood. So, I'm asking for the committee members to look at this carefully and to reconsider that this lot is 1/3 the size that it should be for 1/13th, the size that it should be for any building. I guess that's all I have to say. I am really concerned about our neighborhood.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Did Mr. Blanchard want to say anything or is it all done?
I think she spoke very well for both of us, so I will leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, is there anyone else out there?
I am not seeing anyone else that wishes to ask a specific question or speak in opposition to the application.
Okay, then Sam, would you like a little time to rebut the Blanchards and Mr. McConnell?
Yes, I would. I can I can speak to the fact that this is, I've already done two houses that have had second stories to part of their construction. These are they're two people who aren't butters, who don't live in the Little Beach area. They are on Morris Island Road. They are subject to the houses along Morris Island Road have been enlarged to 2 stories. 2 stories is common throughout the throughout the town, and it's under the height limit. And the height limit is severely impacted the owner's ability to build because of the FEMA required 14-foot level first floor. So I think that this is something that there are thousands of dollars at stake in yearly premiums for not raising your house. So, and the current 22-foot structure just won't hold a family of 3. So.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Then we'll have questions now from the board. Let's start with Bill.
Yeah, I don't know if I missed this. You kind of went through that quickly, but on the northeast border, you said there's something that is right on the, if not off the property line there. Can you explain to me what that is?
What is that?
There's some structure on your plan. It has, along the border, the northeast border.
That's right. The northeast corner there is a little outdoor shower, which is exactly the same size as the outdoor shower that exists today.
Right on the edge of the right on the property line. Sarah, maybe you can move it over right in there, right there.
Those are little brickwork on the ground.
And if I may, Thad Eldridge here.
I think it's a drying area. Excuse me, I think it's a drying area.
Well, let's hear from Thad. Thad, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Thad Eldridge, I believe that's the septic tank that you're referring to. It's a subsurface structure.
I mean, is the fact that is it on or off the property line, off the property?
The utilities, the parking, everything out here is encroaching everywhere on all of these properties. You can see the gas service line runs through this property out to the neighbors out back. We had the same thing with the Swensons next door. The road itself, Seagull Road, overlaps onto this property substantially. It was a poorly planned subdivision that was really a cottage colony turned into a number of individual properties. So yes, we have a septic tank that's over the property line. There are easements in place for it.
There are easements in place for it.
There are. That's part of the full shared septic system that's out here. And I think, Sarah, if you go to page 1. I believe we showed. Yes, on page 1, if you zoom in a little, you can see the septic system that's out there with all the piping coming from all the buildings going to the rear of the property. That's a fully easemented shared system for the entire neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that was a septic tank from the symbol. It just didn't appear like any of the other houses that was the case. That's why, if it's a, this may be the time to address it. I don't know if in your plan you were planning on doing anything with the tank, utilizing the same tank, not really moving it or changing any other aspect of the septic system. But, with a tank encroaching on the adjacent property, might be the time to address it.
And that tank is there with a variance from the Board of Health and a number of other hurdles. If we were to move it, it would be a little cumbersome. But with the easement in place, it's not broken, no need to fix it.
Okay. The other question I had was what material are you going to use on the driveway, assuming you're going to abide by what the planning board suggested?
Shell?
The driveway exists as a shell, proposed shell driveway. and
Okay.
We would maintain the same approach. Even the part going up to the garage would be shell.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Dave Veach.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I can't tell from my memory, perhaps someone present, either Sam or the engineers or whatever. I'm trying to remember in the building next door on 3 Scallop Terrace, we approved that within the last few years. Was that also an increase in adding a floor to the cottage or not? Does anyone know?
The adjacent house was a cottage similar to the Jewels, and we raised that up a year ago.
And yes, a second story went up.
On half of it.
So similar situation to what we're proposing here, correct?
Very similar situation, except for the clients wishing to keep the bedrooms all upstairs and have a full downstairs.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's
Okay.
all I have.
If I may add,
Yes.
the height is similar between this house and the neighboring house. We have an
Okay, thanks,
elevation.
Pat.
Paul, questions?
My questions have been answered by the discussion that's just been had.
Okay, Buck.
My concern is the criteria number 5, impact of scale, sighting, and mass on the neighborhood visual, including views, vistas, and streetscapes. And I was wondering, when you talk mass, would you normally define that as cubic feet?
It varies because a 2-story house that has an eave on the top of the 2nd-story windows has a completely different impact than a house such as this, where the eave is above the 1st floor windows and there's a dormer roof set into the roof, so that the scale is broken in half by that 1st-story eave. This is the nature of Cape architecture.
I'm not sure that answered the question. You're not using, we can't use cubic feet for defining mass.
I've never dealt with the zoning code that in my experience that deals with cubic feet, because it wouldn't be necessarily evocative of what the streetscape is. The streetscape of this would be very similar to the streetscape of the adjoining house and similar to the house down on the next street, where there's a deck in front that also breaks up the elevated front of the house.
So when the neighbors on Morris Island Road, McConnell and Blanchard, were talking about mass and too large and the surprise of, I guess they were referring to the home on Scallop, they're just expressing an opinion. They just think it's too big. So that's an acceptable justification, just looking at the plans, the architect's plans, and saying that's too massive? That's the way that usually happens?
Usually what detractors do is say things are massive.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions, Dave Thompson?
I think all of my, thank you, Dave. I think all of my questions have been answered. To me, it doesn't seem any bigger than the one we gave permission on next door, well, last year. It's only 10 square feet larger than what's there now. I'm very satisfied. Thank you.
Dennis?
Dennis Sullivan, I have no questions.
Megan?
Megan Story, I have no questions.
Okay, Sam, I have one question. It looks to me like the facade of the, we'll call it the basement floor,
Yes.
is covered with lattice work. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Paul, a motion, please.
Yes, this is Paul Semple. I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
All right, we need to vote on that. Dave Veach?
Veach votes yes.
Paul?
Semple votes yes.
Buck?
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson?
Dave Thompson votes yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, deliberation. Let's start with Dave Veach.
Well, despite the objections of the neighbors, I find this to, the reality of part of the reality of this situation is the need to elevate the house to get it out of the floodplain, meet the FEMA requirements, foundation requirements. And I don't, when I look at the structure as it appears, it really does not look significantly larger than the cottage that's there. It certainly it is, because it's added a half story to it, I guess you call it. And there it's not. There are other houses of similar size on the street and in the neighborhood. So I don't see it as substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think it meets all the criteria. It can meets the needs of the owners. I don't think that I don't feel that it's a significant impact on scale. The scale, setting, and mass are out of character for the neighborhood. So I will approve. Thanks.
Okay, Paul.
Well, I agree. I think that this is similar to the house that's next door. And unfortunately, it's a discussion that we've had along in the Little Beach area that in order to comply with federal regulations and to take things out of the floodplain, you have to elevate, which makes for an impact of one kind or another in the neighborhood. But I think it's probably a necessary one. In terms of access by emergency vehicles and so forth, the footprint of the building is not increasing. So although it may be taller, you still have the same issues with respect to access that exist currently. So I think in looking at the criteria, I would not say it's substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Buck.
Well, I think it is more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think the mass, the cubic feet, which I feel comfortable using for defining mass and comparing to the homes in the area. Yeah, there are a couple that are a little big. In fact, if I was voting when those were before the ZBA, I probably would have expressed a negative vote. But on this one, I don't think I can support it.
Dave Thompson.
Well, I kind of agree with what Dave Veach and Paul said. I'm in favor of this. It's only 10 square feet larger than what was there. In terms of getting a fire truck down there, no problem. The building isn't any wider, or it's just, I think that's not a problem. I'm definitely in favor of it, and the architect has done a beautiful job of blending that property into the neighborhood. Thank you.
Dennis.
Dennis Sullivan. Yeah, if I were voting, I certainly would vote in favor of it. I don't see any objections from what I would call the real abutters to this project. So I think it meets the standards. and I would be in favor of it.
Megan,
I think given the fact that FEMA is going to require this, you know, vis-a-vis fees or otherwise to the entire neighborhood leads me to a position where I'm going to support it. I mean, if it were in a neighborhood where you didn't need to do this, then I would say, yeah, it's detrimental to the neighborhood, but everyone's going to be up against this FEMA regulation at some point in that neighborhood. So I think it's an even playing field, and it's not significantly more detrimental than any other neighbor's house that's eventually going to have to be lifted.
Phil,
Yeah, I would agree. I think the FEMA factor certainly plays a large role in this, and it isn't impacting any more as far as setbacks are concerned than what's there now. We didn't, as Dennis said, we didn't really hear from any direct abutters. So if I were voting, I would support it as well.
okay. Well, I'm honestly on the fence about this. It's true about FEMA, but it isn't true that a lot this small needs to have what visually appears to be 3 stories. Now, I know only 2 of them are living, but I'm not pleased as to what's happened with some of those projects that we approved in the past, because they stand out. And the Little Beach area is the neighborhood that I consider, and it's 40 odd homes. And there's a lot of them down there that, in fact, the great majority that aren't anywhere near this. Now, I hear the argument, well, they're gonna be. Well, I don't know about that. You could still build a FEMA compliant basement and a 1-story on top of it. But yet here we need to have 2 stories because they want bedrooms and all the rest of it. Well, maybe that's not what should be happening down there. Maybe we need the FEMA foundation, but maybe we need a small cottage of 1 story. Oh no, I don't. Okay, Paul?
Mr. Chairman, both Mr. Stryber and Mr. Eldridge have their hands raised, if you are willing to entertain their comments.
All right, I would do that. Let's start with that.
Hi, if I may, could I share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So this was taken on Tuesday. And yes, when you raise a house to meet the FEMA requirements, you do increase mass. But as has been stated, all of these houses are eventually going to go up. I played videos for this board before showing the estimated flood level. You can see in here where the bottom of the deck is on the property to the right. That's the height of the flood, the estimated flood coming through here. That would get it right up to the window of the existing home. Taking the existing home and raising it, and I think Sam is a better one to speak to this than I, you're going to end up with a 2-story dwelling with a flat roof, and it's going to look a little out of place. Looking at other homes in the area, and we have a 2-story right next door. We saw it and gained approval from this board to elevate that a few years ago. They chose not to elevate it, but that entire thing was going to go up in order to meet the same height as the Swenson house next door. Reviewing the other homes, the 2 homes on Morris Island Road, or many homes on Morris Island Road, are already 2-story houses. They were elevated at a time when the floodplain was lower. And if they go through a substantial alteration or a significant storm, those will be elevated as well in order to comply with the mandated regulations. So when we say it's an eventuality that this is going to happen, every storm that we get, there's a chance that it'll trigger this. And as always, I'm happy to answer questions.
Dan?
You're up, Sam.
Yeah, I appreciate what Thad Eldridge has added to the, that there are a lot of people who have, because of the FEMA regulations, have gone to 2 stories. This fits with our, with the Cape and with Chatham's current living uses. I understand the nostalgia for the cottage colony. And this is especially true in this area. But the cottage colony existed in a time in our history when a 2-week vacation or a 1-month vacation was what everybody did. They traveled and came and mixed with the same people that they saw every week, but then they left. It's not their home. They could tolerate a bedroom where you have to go outside to change your clothes. This is not, this size of a house just does not function very easily with a family that comes in the wintertime and comes in the shoulder season and has Thanksgiving and Easter and Christmas here. And I think that bear that in mind, that the newer house, which is really very small for a 3-bedroom house, it keeps the culture of a small house. Every effort has been made to reduce the scale with deck elements and buildings that interrupt the size and hide the size of the structure. I would urge you to consider that this type of house is designed to meet current second home living. This is second home living, not a vacation.
Well, I'll say 2 things. Number one, people keep referring to other things we've approved and all that. Remember, for the zoning board of appeals, there's no precedent. I mean, you can refer to what we did or didn't do, but it really is not consideration. Number 2, Thad, you were talking about the homes on Morris Island Road. What are the size of the lots over there? I presume they're bigger than this lot we're dealing with here.
Let me call it up.
Okay.
Well, I would think that you consider that the houses here are smaller than the ones that Thad showed you in the picture on Morris Island Road.
The lots on Morris Island Road are just over 4,000, just over 5,000 square feet. So they are larger, but none of them are of any major size.
Well, no, it's kind of relative, you know. If you have 3,000 versus 5,000, there's quite a difference, you know. Okay, I think that's the end of the discussion. I'll go to Paul for a motion, and here, Paul, you should consider conditions.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to approve the application as submitted. In this area, I think construction is going to need to be off-season. And I assume that's probably what they had in mind. But I guess we could listen to what people are proposing who are actually going to do the construction work.
So, Paul, are you saying no construction whatsoever during like June 15th to September 15th, something like that?
Well, I think that if we use our standard construction standards, which is all construction activity and vehicles to be contained on site, I'm not sure that can be done as a practical matter. We could say that it would have to either be on site or with the permission of whoever property is used. But that's also a very narrow road down there, and it's going to be difficult if people are parking on that road to get access back and through there in the June 30th to Labor Day timeframe. So I guess what I would say is I would say all construction activity and vehicles contained on site or on property which has given permission to be used. I would say that there would be no exterior construction allowed between June 30th and Labor Day. No work permitted on weekends during that time frame, and the construction activity would be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
David Veach seconds.
Yeah, Paul, I feel that we should be more aligned what we did on Hallway Street, where there was no construction, period. I mean, consider the homes down in the Little Beach area. They're all rented, and particularly this summer and next, I mean, it's a hot commodity. I don't think I want to encourage any kind of construction during folks' vacation season. I just, I would not be able to vote for a condition the way you worded it.
So in your view, we should not be limiting it to exterior construction, but that no construction would be allowed between June 30th and Labor Day.
That is correct, and that includes in, out, anything, just what we did on Hallway. It just is grossly unfair, I think, to anybody who's paid a big number to go down to Little Beach for a great summer vacation with their family, and people are working inside. No, I don't think I could vote for that.
Well, I think given that that's the situation, I would amend the condition to say no construction would be allowed in the June 30th to Labor Day timeframe, along with the construction, the fact that no work would be permitted on weekends during that timeframe, and the construction activity would be between 8 and 5 p.m. Actually, as I look at this, but between June 30th and Labor Day, if there's no construction allowed, you don't need the other two provisions. It doesn't have to be on weekends or 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. because there's no construction.
That's right. So,
yeah, sorry, Dave.
Go ahead.
Well, so I would certainly be in agreement with you both on that, and we'll second that.
Okay. I should ask the others how they feel about, because this is a draconian condition, which we've used in the past. But Buck, we're just talking about the condition, not whether you're voting yay or nay on the whole thing. Do you have any objection to that condition?
Absolutely not.
Dave Thompson? Mr. Thompson, are you with us? All right. I'll go on to Dennis. Dennis, do you have any problem with that condition?
I wouldn't have any problem with that at all.
Okay, Megan?
I don't have any problem with that condition in this particular neighborhood.
Okay, Bill?
Absolutely none. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Okay, then Paul, please.
Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
Mr. Strivert has his hand raised.
No, we're all done. We're all done. Paul, would you please have a motion?
Yes, this is Paul Semple. I'll move to approve the application as submitted with the provision that all construction activity and vehicles will be contained on site or on the property where permission has been given to be used, and that between June 30th and Labor Day, there would be no construction allowed.
David seconds.
Okay, so we'll vote on that with those conditions. Dave Veach,
Veach votes yes.
Paul,
Sample votes yes.
Buck,
Upson votes no.
Dave Thompson,
Dave Thompson votes yes.
and I will very, very reluctantly vote yes. Okay, that passed 4-1. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much, Brad.
We have no plans to build in the summer, so your condition is well taken.
Okay, all right. Then Sarah, 21-030.
Application number 21-030, Devin and Kathy Cooper, owners of property located at 430 Riverview Drive, also shown in the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 7J, Block 29, Lot C, 112. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance under Section 8D2C from the requirements of Appendix 2 to allow for the construction of addition within the northerly abutter setback and allow for building coverage in excess of the maximum allowed. The proposed addition will be located 18.4 feet from the northerly abutter, where a 25-foot setback is required. The proposed building coverage is 3,028 square feet, where 2,950 square feet is the maximum allowed. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the Chatham Protective Bylaw.
Okay, do we have Mr. or Mrs. Cooper with us?
We're still here.
Well, welcome, and thank you for your patience.
No.
So, the floor is yours.
So I'm Devin Cooper and my wife Kathy. And I'll ask Sarah, were you sharing what you had on your screen, or do we open our shared? Oh, you're gonna do it.
I'm sharing my screen.
So what we're looking for obviously is a small setback on one abutment and then a total square footage change. And what's taking place is a mudroom. Well, I'll back up a little bit. So the current entry is in the front into a small kitchen. And we're going to move the kitchen to the back corner of the house and create a walkout kitchen to the patio and out to the pool. And at the same time, we'd like to create a mudroom that comes in from the driveway so we can basically come from the existing driveway past the existing one-car garage and enter through the mudroom directly into the kitchen. Aesthetically, looking at the house, we already are, have plans. Everything is 1972 or 73 construction original. So it's updates to the house, window package change, roof change, and a roof pitch change on the front from the gable end running east-west to north-south to give us a little more space over the current garage and kitchen space that we're sitting in right now. So that's, oh, you got a bad picture of the rest of the house, but so that's the scope of the work. And then, yeah, covered here on the the front elevation shows the new entry into the old kitchen with a small farmer's porch. And then on the left or east elevation shows the elevation changes to the mudroom and a bump out on the back, which is included in part of the overall increased coverage of the lot. So I'm not sure how in-depth you want to go into it. But
well, I think you've explained what you want to do, but what you have to go into depth is explaining the variance criteria.
Okay. So if you go back, Sarah, if you jump back to the engineer there. So the current criteria is on that corner of that 8 by 13 foot addition is 25-foot setback. So we're asking for a variance on the abutment to 18.4 feet. And then the total lot coverage with the new farmer's porch and those additions on the back, the other one, which is the addition on the kitchen bump out, that brings our total lot coverage to 10.26% from existing 2746 to 3028.
Okay, well, you're not addressing the criteria.
Okay. My apologies.
I'll read you this. In order to qualify for a variance, you must be able to demonstrate that you meet all three of the requirements. A variance is an extraordinary zoning remedy and no one is entitled to it. So the first one is owing to circumstances related to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. So you need to address that specific first.
I apologize.
The Board of Health said it won't increase the second floor.
I didn't get everything he was reading there, and I don't have it in front of me. So my apologies for that to the board. Can you, I don't have it somewhere on the application. Well, the Board of, I didn't catch that, was it? Okay, perfect, thank you.
So number one is what we're speaking about first.
No, it doesn't. Well, it's owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, and topography of the land or structure, especially affecting such land and structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district which is located. I guess well, I guess is the criteria that comes from the Board of Health saying that it does not affect, it does not adversely.
No, the Board of Health has nothing to do with it. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals criteria that you must speak to all three of these, and all three need to be true for us to consider it.
Okay.
So let's take number one. What is it relating to the soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land or the structures that's unique about your situation that is not generally affecting the zoning district and the other lots around you?
Well, we're not changing the soil conditions, the shape or topography of the land. The structure is not, it's not affected, we're not regrading or affecting the soil conditions or the shape or the topography. So,
okay, all right, so let's go on to number two. A literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petition.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, we just can't utilize the property in the way we'd like to and have a updated living, new kitchen, utilizing our space more efficiently.
Well, let's go on to number three then.
So wait a second. So I mean, again, I'm not trying to, if we're not prepared in meeting these criteria, then if we need to reapply and make sure we cover all three of those, I apologize.
Yeah, I would suggest that's a pretty good idea because you're not even in the ballpark with answering these questions. So what I would request you to do is ask for a continuance. That way you don't have to reapply, okay? If you ask for withdrawal, then you'd have to start at square one. But if you ask for withdrawal, it gives you time to examine the criteria and come up with answers that would make sense to us, and we'll go from there. So I will ask you to please ask for a continuance. And Sarah, what kind of a date do we have?
The earliest I can possibly put them on an agenda at this point would be July 8th.
Okay, so that's, Mr. Cooper, that's what you would ask for, a continuance until July 8th.
Okay.
So could we have a continuance?
We're requesting a continuance to the July 8th date, please.
Oh, okay. Any discussion? Any members want to discuss this or no?
Dave, this is Dave Veach.
Yeah.
I guess I just would like to express to the applicants that they maybe take a look at some of the design options that they might be able to do that would not, and to accomplish everything they'd like to accomplish, or most everything they'd like to accomplish, without needing to be asking us for variances, because as we've seen, we're bound by some pretty strict standards to grant variances. And I think of a request that came before us a few years ago. Somebody one day had a farmer's porch, and Joe Craig's response was, well, there are wants and there are needs. And at the time, he didn't feel that the farmer's porch, he felt it was a want rather than a need. And my initial take in looking at this is that that's kind of what's driving this. And I would think that there would be ways, perhaps, with a little design, with some design change, to not need to request variances from us. So that's my take. Thanks.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay, so Paul, anybody else want to weigh in, or is that it? Sounds like that's it.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to grant the request for continuance to July 8th, 2021.
All right.
Dave Veach seconds.
Now we need to vote on that. Dave Veach.
Veach votes yes.
Paul.
Sample votes yes.
Buck.
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson.
Dave Thompson votes yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Cooper, and we'll see you in July.
Thank you very much.
Other business, Sarah, do we have some minutes to approve?
We have the minutes of April 22nd.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to approve the minutes of April 22nd.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, and we need to vote on that. Dave Veach.
Veach votes yes.
Paul.
Sample votes yes.
Buck.
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson.
Thompson, yes.
And I vote yes. That's unanimous. Is there anything else, Sarah?
Your packets for the May 27th meeting will be put out in the box tomorrow for everyone to pick up. Yet again, it is another substantial meeting. So anyone that has questions, please feel free to contact me and we can go over anything that you may have questions on.
Okay, so we need to adjourn the meeting. Paul, a motion, please.
This is Paul Semple. I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay, we're all voting. Dave Veach.
Veach votes yes.
Paul.
Sample votes yes.
Buck.
Upson votes yes.
Dave Thompson.
Dave Thompson votes yes.
Dennis.
Sullivan votes yes.
Megan.
Story votes yes.
Bill.
Grau votes yes.
All right, and I vote yes, and I thank you one and all. Sarah, it's 5:46 here in Stage Harbor. What do you have?
It is 5:46 here as well.
All right, that's the official time. Thank you one and all.